It all happened 14 or 15 years ago. I must have been almost 10. The place has since been renamed Greenleaf Village, but it was known as Lotus Flower Peak back then. Lotus Flower Peak was the name of a mountain visible from the south gate, where a cannon used to go off at noontime. The village, also called the Lotus Flower Peak, lay between the mountain and the city gates. Now the village is nothing but a slum where laborers live in filthy quarters, but at the time its residents held their heads high. There were only about a dozen households in the village then, and the villagers generally made their living by either keeping an orchard, planting vegetables, or growing bean sprouts. In the village, there lived a man who owned the largest orchard and enjoyed the most comfortable lifestyle. His name I've forgotten, but the villagers called him Sir O. His face was round and handsome, and the sound of his voice rang out as loud as a cicada crying in full summer, throttled from a willow tree. Being a very industrious old man, he would wake up at dawn and supervise the household chores, his hands clasped behind his back. Since he was like a clock, the villagers rose when they heard him up. If he wasn't heard chiding servants during his morning rounds, people found this so strange they would visit his house to see what was the matter. He was bound to be in bed, not feeling well. But such a thing happened no more than once a year, hardly once in 2 or 3 years even. Since he always wore an official skullcap, the villagers called him Yang Ban, even though he was just a newcomer. In return, he tried not to lose the goodwill of the villagers. He distributed strings of dried pollock and bundles of laver in December, and stocked up on spare farming equipment, which he lent to his neighbors for free upon request. As a result, his family came to be respected as among the most generous as well as the most influential in the village. In his household, there lived a deaf-mute servant named Samnyong. He was short and stocky and had hardly any neck, so that it looked as if his head were glued to his shoulders. In addition, he had a pock-marked face and a huge mouth. His master had had him cut off his wispy ponytail, after which his hair always stuck up like a chestnut burr. When he walked, he looked out of breath and sluggish, like an ugly toad standing on its hind legs. The villagers never referred to him by his name, but always called him Mute, Mute, or Parrot, Parrot. But Samnyong couldn't hear any of these things anyway. His master had brought him along when the entire household first moved in. Samnyong was honest, loyal, hardworking, and strong. Although he was a mute who got by through reading people's faces, in circumstances he could be more sensible than those who could speak and hear. Besides, he was always cautious and never made a mistake. As soon as he got up in the morning, he swept the yard and fed the cows and pigs. During the summer, he weeded the fields and carried the firewood to be chopped. During the winter, he shoveled the snow and ran all kinds of errands. The master took good care of the mute and appreciated him above all for his diligence. If the mute looked sick, he was allowed to rest. He was given what he wanted to eat, was clothed however he needed to be, and was allowed to sleep regular hours. The master had one son, the sole heir for the 3rd straight generation. He was 17 years old but looked more like 14. Since he had been greatly pampered during his upbringing, The boy ended up being ill-mannered toward everyone, behaving like a spoiled child and reacting with cruelty to people and animals alike. The villagers often cursed the boy. "Bastard, a son like that, he won't ever be anything but a burden to his father. Better not have a son at all." Whenever the son did something wrong, the master's wife said to her husband, "Why don't you give him a good beating? How can you be so lenient?" At times, she looked ready to whip the boy herself. "Well, he hasn't come of age yet," the master would say. "He won't be like that when he grows up a bit more." "How old does he have to be?" shrieked his wife like a heron. "He'll be 20 in no time. He'll soon be marrying and having children. If he acts like that, what on earth will he be fit for?" She continued to lash out at her husband. "You're the one who spoiled him. All you ever do is pamper him. You'll never teach him manners." When she started in on him like this, the master would quietly walk away. The son did not regard the mute as a human being. Counting on the poor servant's inability to speak, the boy, on his way in or out, would punch the mute in the side or kick him front behind. But at such times, the mute simply considered the youth rather endearing. He was even amused at the small helpless limbs poking at his iron body, so he would just turn away, move to different place, and forget one matter. Once the son put dung into the mute's mouth while the latter was taking a nap. Another time, the boy stealthily tied up the mute's arms and legs, lit matches between all his fingers and toes, and watched in glee as the mute, taken by surprise, leapt up and writhed in pain as if about to perish. On such occasions, the mute's heart was filled with indignation, but he resented his own deformity rather than his master's son. He'd cursed the world, but not the boy. The mute never shed a tear. He didn't have any tears. His eyes were like a dried-out fountain, ready to flow but never flowing. Like a dog that never abandons its master, the mute believed that he could not live anywhere but in his old master's house, and that he could trust no one except the people who resided there. He figured that it was simply his fate to live and die in that house. All the abuse he received from his master's son, the pinching, punching, and kicking, he regarded as merely inherent to his place in the world. The pain he suffered was what fate held in store for him, the bitterness of pain no more than what he deserved. He never thought of avoiding his due. Although he never considered leaving the house or breaking free from his circumstances, he did think of his powerful fists whenever his master's son pestered and mistreated him. He knew that he was strong enough to restrain the son. At times, when he was immersed in pain and bitterness, the mute could feel his fists start to tremble. He would be tempted to strike his young master, but he suppressed this impulse along with his terrible pain. "No, he is the son of my master," he repeated to himself. "He is my young master." He would forget soon enough. When the boy came home later in tears after playing with other children in the village, the mute would go fight for him like a bull on a wild rampage. No troublemaker in the village dared challenge the master's son for fear of the mute, and the boy, in turn, always sought out the mute whenever he was in trouble. Like a faithful dog that crawls back after a beating, the mute did all he could without reservation for the sake of his master's son.